Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We liked our movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained best pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the favorite bit by bit. Sweetie and Sweetie are here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast. Hey, hey.
Chrissy, over by the wall. Bring me the big knife.
No, Ronnie.
Bring me the big knife. I'm gonna cut my throat.
Maybe I should come back another time.
No, I want you to see this. I want you to watch me kill myself so you can tell my brother Johnny on his wedding day, okay? Chrissy, bring me the big knife!
I tell you, I won't do it.
She won't do it.
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Santa's podcast, your favorite podcast where two sweetie sisters and their mom talk about movies that shaped their childhood. I'm Sweetie.
And I'm Sweetie.
And I'm Mom.
Or
Carol.
Carol! All right, guys. Banner day in the podcast. Carol came up for a little visit, which is awesome. She comes like once a month. And we had a nice little brunch today. And we thought it'd be an awesome idea, since she's here live and in person, to have her join the podcast.
wow, big day.
I'm very excited.
So we chose Carol K. Dumas' favorite. She always used to talk about this movie when we were little, I think. I just remember hearing about it a lot and being like, I don't know what that is. And I didn't see it for the first time until recently, like this year recently.
Wow.
Or not this year, last summer. And yeah, so we picked
Moonstruck. Moonstruck, guys. 1987.
87.
Starring
Cher.
Cher,
Oh.
Nicolas Cage, and Olympia Dukakis.
Yes. And other famous actors who I'm not as familiar with, right? Like the dad is someone kind of famous, right?
Yes.
Janie
Yeah.
Aiello is,
Yes. Oh,
is,
Janie Aiello, yeah.
is
Yeah.
pretty famous, right? I think that might be it. And then there's like a smattering of other people who were in like
who
tons
you're
of
like,
80s
hey,
movies. You're
that
like,
guy,
oh,
that guy,
that girl.
yeah.
But yeah, fabulous film. I agree with Sweetie. Almost along the lines of Working Girl, a movie that Carol here loved and was a romantic tearjerker for you, let's
Yes.
say, right?
Yes.
So how did you come about this movie? Do you remember, like, did you see it in the theater or anything? Did
Yeah.
you? You
Yeah.
did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Oh my
definitely.
God. Tell us the story.
I can't remember. 1987 is so long ago. But I guess it was one of those big movies of the year, and Cher was a very big actress by this time, and she was playing this Italian young widow, and Olympia Dukakis, she was well known also. So it sounded like a good cast and a good movie. And end up, you're probably going to tell all these famous
So you
things
saw it in, like, the
A
Wellfleet
theater.
cinemas?
With
probably.
who?
Well,
Who'd you see
Dad,
it with?
Probably.
With Dad? Date
Did
night?
you have, like, a date night?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Who was taking care of the
Who were
children?
taking care of us?
I don't know.
That's cool you got out.
Yeah,
I'm happy
I
you got the
appreciate
date
it.
night.
Congrats.
So mom loved this movie, and sort of like Working Girl, like passed it down, being like, we just like heard her talk about it, or it would be on TV, and you'd be like, oh my God, I love this film. For me, the thing that I just remembered as a little kid about this was the wooden hand.
Yep.
That was the thing that like stood out. I don't think I understood this movie. I didn't get it because I was just too young. It was about
Yeah,
romance,
right.
and you're like 6 years old, and like, what's love? Like, what's all that stuff? But I just remember Nicolas Cage with the wooden hand.
Creepy.
Yeah, it was just like, what's wrong with that guy? Like, what's his? And we'll talk about this more later as we like get into the plot. But that's like such an interesting device, like that they use with that guy. Like, interesting, right? But yeah, Cher. All I can say is Cher needs to be in more movies again.
Hey,
Apparently, this was like
Mamma
the
Mia-
pinnacle.
Mamma Mia
Yes.
2.
Yes.
mark it in your calendar.
Right,
Just kidding. It's
right.
probably going to be terrible. But she's one of the rare singers who is a great actress. And I feel like who else? Like who's another?
Britney
Like-
Spears. Kidding.
Oh.
No.
Bette Midler?
Bette Midler. Good one. Good one. Definitely.
But
Debbie
was
Reynolds?
she a
Just
singer?
kidding.
But was
Reynolds?
Bette Midler?
No, Debbie Reynolds is great.
But didn't Debbie Reynolds like not singing in the rain?
Oh, in a movie?
Yeah,
No.
didn't somebody
No.
else like dub her?
No.
Wasn't
I
that
think
the
so.
like?
I don't know.
Yeah, right. The great thing about Cher, so I read that this was really the pinnacle of like her movie career. So she did like you said, Silkwood, Witches of Eastwick,
Mermaid?
that was after.
Oh, that
so
was
they said
after?
like there was all those movies in the 80s, and she did like 3 movies this year when this movie came
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
And she also like kind of restarted her singing career. So
Yeah,
you know,
people
if you
were
remember,
obsessed with
if I
with
could
Cher.
turn back time,
Yeah.
great song, weird outfit. So she won the Oscar for this,
Yes,
right? So
right.
Best Actress, it was kind of like a big deal. And then didn't really get any all the other movie roles kind of didn't hit for her, and then she sort of disappeared a bit. And then she came back with like a lot of her disco hits. Do you believe in love after love? So like really hit like the gay circuit with all those songs.
Right.
And then she did Burlesque. I don't know if you remember that with Christina
Oh, yeah.
Aguilera a couple
Tia-
years
Tia
ago.
With Mussolini, wasn't she?
Yeah,
in that?
what's that?
Yeah,
I saw
was,
that in IMDb. I'm like,
yeah,
what's
that was pretty good. Like she was, I can't remember the plot, but I remember being in it. It was set in Italy, and I think she was an American in Italy during the World War II
Okay.
or something. And I can't remember the
Question:
plot. Yeah.
Is Cher Italian? Isn't she like Native American?
No, she is Native American. She's like half Cherokee or something
Right.
like that. And her name was Sherilyn Sarkeesian,
Right.
so she would have been Armenian.
Oh my
as
God.
well.
Oh my god!
Right. So very. I feel like we've said that with like what's that actor we said that before with who can play like a lot of different ethnic groups.
Yeah. Alfred Molina.
Yeah, Alfred Molina.
Oh,
she's
right,
like the
right.
female Alfred Molina,
Yes.
and like basically like anything that's like Mediterranean looking, they'll be like, okay, Cher, you're Greek, you're Italian, you're Armenian, like whatever, you're Native American.
I thought she was very convincing though in, in this
totally.
role.
She had the
Definitely.
accent.
It surprised me.
down.
Yeah, because I often wondered how, like Italian Americans or Italians, if they saw this movie, they said, did they think she was a good enough Italian, had a good enough Italian accent, or
I mean, we're Italian, so we can judge, and I think she nailed it.
Yeah.
I think she
but
nailed
not
it.
like classic Italian.
Yeah. No, I thought she was excellent. And
Yeah.
this story is just like awesome. And it's really a very interesting story. Moved along quite quickly. I thought it was like,
yeah,
you know,
I always like that part
no,
about it. Though
like
today,
dragging parts.
after not seeing it for many years, I felt like some parts were just. I remember thinking the part was so romantic about when she and Nicolas Cage get together. Johnny Camilleri, not Johnny, Ronnie. And then I realized that they were just together like one day.
So we always have trouble. I was going to say, I'm like, we're definitely going to talk about
Yes,
this.
I
Like,
have-
I have a huge
I have
problems
many things to say.
with like sped up relationship like this. I'm like,
Well, you have to
dude.
suspend
Exactly.
reality
So
in this.
sitting here, I was like, okay, I can see how romantic this is and how you like could get caught up in that. But the rational right side of my brain, I was like,
Right.
you've known each other for 3 days. Like, cool your jets. And she obviously is like,
Even
It's
wasn't it
just
like
lust.
a day? I don't know.
It was,
Right.
it was
but
a day.
yeah,
right.
we'll talk about it.
yeah, but like, so let's get into the plot. Like we said, it's an amazing kind of zany Italian plot.
Can I say it?
A lot of drama.
Sweetie
Wait,
synopsis.
not yet,
We
Mom.
gotta set it up.
Okay. Oh my God.
She's crazy.
she's just taking over the podcast, Carol. You're a guest. You're a guest.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So, you ready? Well, which part are you going to do?
Yeah, which part
You
would
gonna
you
do my
like to
part?
do, Carol? You want us to do the "It's time for the"?
Okay.
All right. Ready?
Wait,
Go.
hold on.
Oh, wait.
What part am I going to do?
You're not gonna have a part.
Okay. That's fine.
You know you're gonna say the thing after I say "Sweet."
Okay.
Okay. Go.
It's time for the sweetie synopsis.
Sweeties. I'm like not even remember what we even did. I'm like, snap out of it.
Good one. Loretta. What's her
You're
last
gonna
name?
struggle with the Italian last
Castorini.
name.
What?
Castorini.
Castorini is a widow of the age of
37.
37, but she looks kind of more like 50. She's sparky. She's got spark, but she wears dowdy clothes. She's got gray hair. Wears her hair up. She's just no makeup. Just not. She's not her best. She's not at her best level.
Yeah, I feel like she's just she's packed it in. She's
Yep.
like, I was married,
Yeah.
though she is actively dating.
Right. So she was married for like 2 years, and then her husband gets hit by a bus, And then she meets this John character who knew her husband, but that's kind of seems like a loose science there. That whole relationship. I'm like, how did they know each other?
Well,
what was
he
the
died and then
relationship?
he, like, moved in
I know.
on her.
So she's dating this Johnny character who's kind of like a loser. He
They
sucks.
call him a big baby.
They call him a big baby.
And Carol here, what did you call him, Mom? I think you said
Mama's boy.
Mama's boy, which is accurate because his mother is dying, so he needs to go to Sicily to tend to her deathbed. Before he goes, however, he proposes to her without a ring. Cool, Johnny. Yeah, that makes sense. And she says yes, even though I'm like, do you even like him? And later her mom's like, do you love him? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay. Great.
Right.
Great.
And like that's one of my favorite lines. I'll talk about that after because I mean, obviously her mother has a ton of wisdom that is spot on about men in this film, right? And she does a good line later. Right. So Johnny
Has a request.
Has a request. I'm flying to Palermo. My mother's dying. Here is a business card from my brother's bakery. Please invite him to the wedding and just like fill him in on the deets. Later, got to take care of my
By the
sick
way, haven't talked to him in 5 years.
Yes, haven't thank you.
We had a falling out.
Right.
And she's like, okay.
Yeah. Weird. And like, again, like, well, I guess he didn't tell her that he had a brother. I mean, some stuff isn't
Right.
really
She
coming
used
out
to
in this.
know.
And you don't know how long they've been dating. Like, stuff to me seems to move pretty quick in this world. So maybe they've been
Right.
dating for like a week.
Yeah,
like,
what's
literally,
the sitch?
who knows?
I don't know.
Probably not.
7 years, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think
No.
it was a long time.
I thought it was 7 years.
What?
Yeah, 7 years they've been dating.
She had been, that's how long ago her husband died.
But she
It
knew
was?
Johnny knew her husband.
And
so
you
I
think they've
thought,
been dating for
I
7
thought they were dating
years?
for 7 years.
I don't know. But wouldn't her father have met? It seemed like her father hadn't met him before.
Exactly.
No,
I don't
he had
know.
met him. He had met him.
I think it was a number of years they
He
were
had met the
together, but
brother.
not
Maybe
like
a couple of years. Maybe not 7. I don't know.
But yeah, so Loretta lives at home with her mother and her father and her grandfather in this like big brownstone. And then there's sort of like a side plot with her parents kind of going through their own like marriage drama. So Loretta is a very take charge woman. When you see her with Johnny, you realize like she wears the pants. I mean, she's telling that guy everything what he does. And it seems to me that Johnny is basically one of those guys that goes from having a mom and being a mama's boy to then having a wife who takes place of the mother role, right?
Right. He
So
wants
she-
somebody to take care of him.
Exactly. And Loretta, I think that's maybe common, let's say, even in this culture, in the Italian culture, right? That is with a strong matriarchs, you have a lot of men who are maybe kind of taken care of by their... So she's used to that. And I don't think that really, like, she just doesn't really care. She knows that's probably her fate. Anyway, goes to the bakery where the brother, Ronnie, works. Ronnie's a little, let's use the word unhinged. What do you think?
I think he's crazy. And so he's got this wooden hand, and he's like, great, my brother's in love. Well, that's great. Give me the knife. I'm going to slit my throat. And like, he's all crazy and stuff. And she's like, yo, wait, whoa. What's happening here? What's going on? Let's talk about it. And he's like, well, here's why we had a falling out, okay? I was slicing bread. Johnny comes, distracts me. I got my hand stuck in the slicer, chopped it off. We haven't spoken since. So because
Didn't make
he
any
got
sense.
his hand chopped off, his fiance broke off the wedding because she couldn't stand to be with this disfigured
He
man.
was maimed.
Right, quote unquote. I think she was just like, "Whoa, this
Does
dude
he
is
still
crazy."
have, like a part of his hand left because it looked like when he showed it, there was like skin, but it was
Yeah.
just like no fingers.
Probably.
Right?
Yeah, that
Like,
makes
the
sense.
Fingers
Yeah.
are
That
gone.
makes sense. Yeah.
I noticed that today.
Maybe a little stub and then some
Yeah.
fingers.
And also, question for the group. What's with the wooden hand? Is that something when you like can't afford what you would use for a hand replacement?
Well, what would
Is
they
there
use for a hand replacement? I don't think
Would
the
they use, like, a
technology.
cloth?
I don't think the technology was there in the.
So he could still put his bread in the oven and everything.
Oh, it's
so
for
he
the
had-
bread. It's the bread making.
Well, you need
Okay.
you need something.
Basically, it's like a paddle.
You're not
You know, those
getting
bread paddles.
You're not getting like a Luke Skywalker amazing robotic hand.
right.
Why
The technology's not there
I
yet.
just have never seen a wooden hand. I just,
Well, right, because they don't have them anymore. I don't know.
I'm
You get a
not
hook
that
now. You
real
get a hook. They're like,
person.
you want a
Right,
hand? Here's a
Prosthetic
hook.
hands, I don't
yeah,
know.
right. A hook for a hand. Hello, Adventures in
Yeah, I've seen
Babysitting.
the hook.
John
Long
Pruitt.
ago it was hooks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
But because he was a bread baker, the
I
wood,
guess
and then
so.
it
I
wouldn't,
mean, I just
it wouldn't heat up maybe for the bread baking in the oven.
Put it on
It could catch
fire.
on fire.
Well, he had a glove
He had
on.
gloves on.
I think that they mostly did it
We're
for the
overthinking this.
character. It was funny. It's weird.
Yeah,
it just makes him weird, and that's fine. So she's immediately like, "This guy's weird. Let's go. I'm gonna go talk to him in his apartment." So
but the difference between Johnny and Ronnie is stark, right?
yes,
Like, so you have, Mama's boy Johnny, and then you have Ronnie, who is like a little unhinged, but there's a certain passion, like joie de vivre to him. Like, clearly that guy is like, is alive. Like, and something that I think she was really missing from Johnny that she didn't even know she was missing, right? She's like, oh, Johnny's a safe bet, whatever. But you're right. Goes up to talks to Ronnie in his apartment, makes a mistake. What happens?
They have some drinks, and then they're like shouting. Ronnie flips over the table because she's like, "Why are you so upset? Get over it. You act like you're the only person who's ever cried tears or something." And he gets really mad about
good
that.
line.
Flips over the table, and then like picks her up, and then just kisses her really hard, like on her mouth. And she's like, "Whoa, what's happening?" But then she kisses him back, and then they get caught in this moment of passion, and he carries her to his bed, and they have sex, and it's a great scene.
Or do they just moan with all their clothes on?
Right. It was
because
hard.
that's what happened.
It was hard to tell, to be honest. Unsure if there was any P&V action.
Carol's like, their clothes are still on.
But when they woke up, they were naked when they woke up.
Yes.
Okay.
True,
Yeah,
that's
but
true.
it was interesting how they did that, because basically, like, he was like kind of lightly kissing her, and she is like moaning up a storm.
Well, now we know how she got all those love bites on her neck.
Yeah, clearly
That's all they do.
Some intense foreplay going on.
Yeah.
there.
So she wakes up the next morning. She's like, "Oh my god!" and freaks out and needs to tell John. She's just like so upset about it. Goes to like confesses her sin. She has to do 2 rosaries for that sin. Whew, it's a lot. It's a lot of prayers. So meanwhile, Johnny says he's in love with her. She slaps him twice and is like, "Snap out of it." And then he's like, "Go to the opera with me," because he loves the opera. So she agrees to do that. She goes, she like dyes her hair, gets a nice
so
dress.
remember the agreement, they kind of make an agreement. Like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, go to the opera with me. Like, I will forget this ever happened. Like, I forget if he decides to go to the wedding or not. But basically, like, this is a compromise that she's like, okay, this will make everything better if I agree to go to this opera with him. And then it's makeover time.
Favorite.
Ugh, love a good makeover scene.
No.
So good.
And that was one of the best.
This is a good one. I mean, it's because like it's interesting because obviously Cher doesn't need like that much work. It was all under there, but she just really needed an eyebrow pluck and get rid of the grays.
The grays drive me nuts.
Yeah. Oh my. I mean, it's amazing how just some gray hairs will make you look
that much older.
Mom, stop.
No, not your hair, Mom. Carol.
But
Please.
that she was 37 and she looked like, what did you say? You thought she looked
47,
50?
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
made
she
her
looked
look
50.
Approaching
as
50.
difficult that is to make Cher look like a dowdy, sort of unattractive person.
Yeah.
Like she was dowdy as ugh.
Widow that
and
gave
like
up.
still
Yeah.
living at home, and you're like,
Right.
what is
Right.
happening here?
And even her clothes were so. I mean, she looked
Clothes.
like she lives in a nunnery. I mean, just.
It's just I
She's
had
a
a problem with it.
bookkeeper. I
Right.
mean, the woman is just not living her best life.
No,
let's say.
No. Yeah, so she goes to the opera. They have a great time. They both look spiffy. Nicolas Cage, even though will never be attracted to him.
I don't know.
In all my
felt
life,
he was kind of cute in this.
He was I thought he was hot.
he
in
looked like
that.
Wolverine.
No,
And
I agree with that,
Wolverine.
but I think out of every single movie I've ever seen in him, this is the most attractive
Yes.
I've
Oh,
ever
yeah.
seen him.
Yes, I agree.
His body is hot. I think
he's
he has a
just
good
so
body in this.
crazy. I'm like, do we forget that he's nuts?
He's crazy, but in like a sensitive way. I don't know. I can like see how you would be
I don't
attracted
know.
to that.
I'm just very concerned. Like, you do one wrong move and he's like kills himself.
no, but he obviously is like such a romantic.
Chops off his other hand 'cause he
versus
loves
like
you
her
so much.
fiance who is like such a dud.
Yeah, wet blanket.
Yeah.
Wow.
like, wet blanket alert. Right. Yeah. So obviously this being a movie very much about Italian culture has to include some opera.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to the Met. They see La Boheme, which not totally clear the details of that opera, but I'm pretty sure it's the same one as Rent. So let's just go with that.
Right, it's based on that.
Yeah. And Loretta doesn't really know what to think about opera. She's like, a little bit of like a Pretty Woman kind of thing where she goes in not knowing, is initially confused because it's like, oh, I can't understand it. I don't know what's happening. And then she's crying buckets by the end. Buckets, which is a great scene.
She could speak Italian, so she understood what they were singing.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
true.
Right. Yeah.
That's true. Good point. Good point, Carol.
But I think this just makes her love Ronnie even more, right? Because it's like,
And it's like the romance in the show and this like sad thing,
Right.
and it's just you love someone so much and they die kind of thing. So yeah.
yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
then side plot, she sees
Right.
her father there. Do you want to explain this part, Mom?
So that the drama at home in the house is the other side. There's a side story is that the father is having an affair with this woman, this floozy,
Mona.
played by Anita Gillette wonderfully.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is she
And-
like an actress known
She
for
was
something?
like, yeah, she was on a TV show. She was like a what do you call it, a character on different
She looks
shows.
familiar.
She didn't star in anything I know, but she's been in a lot. She was a lot of 60s TV shows, you know. So he's there with her, and then Cher is there. Cher, what is her name in this movie? Loretta is there with Ronnie, and he knows, of course, Loretta's engaged. And of course, he's embarrassed. He'd be seen with his mistress, so they confront each other there, and he doesn't want her to tell her mother, obviously, and everything. So it's very awkward.
But her
uncomfortable
mom
moment.
knows.
Her mom knows because a scene before she suspected he was cheating on her because he's been acting weird and playing Vicky Carr records and not sleeping with her and that kind of thing. So she knew what was going on.
What's up? Yeah. So that's a fun little side plot there.
Yeah.
And so, let's see. So she spends the night again at Ronnie's house. Meanwhile, Johnny comes home, goes to Loretta's house. Loretta's not there. Her mother is there and is like, "What happened to your mother?" And he's like, "She was cured. It's a miracle. Like she just got better." And I'm just like, a suspicious story. Did he kill her? I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But so he goes home and he's like, "Tell me, or I'll come over in the morning when Loretta's back." So Loretta finally walks in the morning. Best walk of shame I've ever seen in my life.
Girl
What the
looked
hell?
like, what?
What the hell?
Yeah, they could have like dressed.
Could have frizzed her hair a
up.
little.
I mean,
like
she looked
what?
amazing.
Still had her blush on.
On her lipstick?
Yeah, and
like,
her lipstick.
what?
Who like walks out of a walk of shame and puts on reapplies your Cabernet lipstick and like strolls out the door? I mean,
amazing.
she looked
Amazing.
amazing. She is Cher, so
Yeah.
I'll give it to her.
Yeah, we'll let it slide. So she comes, her mom's like, well, Johnny was here. And she's like, what? So she starts freaking out. Meanwhile, the whole family comes over. We got Ronnie coming over for breakfast, oatmeal, the grandfather who lives there, so he comes down, and then the aunt and uncle come over because Loretta forgot to deposit their money and they thought she like left town with it or something. And then finally Johnny arrives. So the whole family's there, and there's this big moment where they're like, "Oh, we have to tell him the truth." But don't worry, guys. Johnny has already decided he cannot marry Loretta because if he does, his mother will die. So he's tied the fact that his mother was dying to his love for Loretta and getting married. So they're like, all right, that problem's solved. And then Ronnie's like, "Loretta, will you marry me?" And she's like, "Yes." So that happens.
The end.
The end. So now they're in love and everything's great. And Johnny's like pretty confused about it, but is still posing for the family photo and drinking champagne. So, hey, everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
I guess. But yeah, that's kind of the flick. So it's a weird. I guess if you really think about it, it's like an opera. The whole everything is just very chaotic and kind of like you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Well,
Not really, but I'm going to go with
IMDb,
it.
like equated each of the main actors with like a part in an opera. So like Loretta would be the soprano, Ronnie would be the tenor. They like went like
Yeah.
that, which was kind of an interesting little theory about
Who's
that.
the grandfather?
It was only 4 people, so it's like only the 4 parts. So it's like the 2 main couples. So you have the older couples and then the younger couple. Right. So I agree. So like very much like an opera, tragedy, comedy, like all that kind of thrown in there. Obviously a great look at Italian American culture, and both from like old world sort of stuff back into like how that is all relating with these people who live in Brooklyn. So it's like an Italian American pocket in Brooklyn. And just that whole dynamic, and obviously like what marriage means to these people, because that's kind of what is really interesting, right? Because my 2018 take when Ronnie proposes to her after knowing her for 3 days is like, why don't you just date for a while? That's like always what I think with these like rush romances.
What do we do? What are we doing?
Right. But that's like not what that culture was. I mean, they're about like getting married and they're about serious and like obviously like falling in love and this and that. But there's a very interesting look at a marriage, the older marriage, right? So you're talking about the one between Cosmo and what is the mom's name?
Rose.
Which is so interesting to me because obviously like and that scene at the table at the end, which that is like the greatest scene when all of them are eating the oatmeal. Oh my God, that was hilarious, but also so touching when he brings up the fact that she's crying and she's like, I want you to stop seeing that mistress. And he just gets up, slams his hand down on the table, and you're like, oh no, he's going to do some like wild, like, you can't make me whatever, do this hothead Italian thing. Sits back down and is like, fine.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they have that te amo like exchange, which I just think is so beautiful. Oh, and he says something like, my life is nothing or something like that.
My life is built on nothing. And she's
like, don't
she starts
you say
tearing
that.
up and she said, don't you say that.
Right.
It's built on love.
Right. And he realizes that in that moment and says, and they do their te amo, I love you kind of like exchange. And I thought that was so beautiful. And just like how, you'll have these long marriages, and especially in the Catholic faith where you're, very much bound by that, and they don't really believe in divorce. That's more modern now, but definitely like back in the day. And you just stuck with it.
Maybe you wouldn't need to get divorced if you dated for a little bit longer.
No, definitely.
It just makes sense to me.
But that's just like, marriage is just what people did then. I mean, look at Loretta, like not marrying for love. For the first guy.
No, the first guy she did.
Oh, sorry, for Johnny. I meant for Johnny.
For Johnny.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
She she says when she's talking with Ronnie at the table, like I'm thinking about being a bride. Like that's why I'm doing this, because he's like, why are you marrying him? This and that, and she just like knows that's kind of sad. Like I think she knows that's the way to like move her life forward. Because if not, she'll just be staying with her parents.
Or that's as good as it gets. Yeah.
Right. So. Obviously, Ronnie represented to her at least a little something that she could like get behind versus just being like a sad sack life. But in general, I would say if I had to like rename this movie, not Moonstruck, beautiful title though. I mean, the moon stuff is really cool. I would name it Men or Dogs
or Wolves.
Yeah, right, because it's like the men are dogs in this movie.
Yeah.
It's true, and I mean, I do think that end scene over the oatmeal and the te amo is very touching. But again, I'm like, he's still an idiot. Like, he's still cheating on her. And that is annoying to me. That's just like forgiven.
Well, so why do you think they put the John Mahoney character in there? The one who we meet, a professor that Olympia Dukakis Rose meets at the restaurant when she's dining out alone.
Right. So first it goes along with like the men are dogs theory again, because that guy is like clearly a dog. But it shows that once Rose had that same temptation, she was like, sorry, like you can't come into my house.
Yeah.
I'm married.
I respect the vows of marriage.
And that's how it goes with with women a lot of times. I'm not saying all women are guilt-free, that they're women, they're not women. There's women that cheat. And it's like
Loretta's
exactly. So that's the other side of that. And that's sort of the place of that Olympia Dukakis character, who does spout incredible wisdom throughout the film about many, many things. And I'm sorry, that woman is a national treasure.
Yes.
I think she is fabulous and steals the show in literally every movie I have ever seen her in. We've done so many movies with Olympia Dukakis.
No.
It's crazy.
Well, just, I mean,
Two Look Who's Talkings,
Steel Magnolias,
and then something else too.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I believe it, but I forget what it is.
Me too.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But is she not like the most fabulous?
Yeah.
She won an Oscar for this too.
Whoa.
BTW.
She did. Oh.
Her and Cher both took it away, which like she was fabulous
Good
in this.
one.
So she says, the main thing that she says is that her theory is that why do men cheat?
Yeah.
Right? Why are they unfaithful? Because they're scared of dying. And I think that's an interesting take on that. What do you think?
Explain it. I don't get it.
Because like life's short, and they feel like, okay, like I'm scared of dying. I think she's saying it more in like maybe a younger woman stance. Usually that's used, I think, in a more younger woman stance, because you think why do like old men go with young women? Because they have youth, and it feels like they're alive if they like keep.
I guess that's what
keep
she
going
meant,
along with this.
Yeah.
Keep cheating.
Or that if he die, he's afraid of dying. So a way to combat that is to live as best as you can, and to live as best as you can is like sleeping around, like having sex with whoever you want.
That's living as best as you can.
That's for guys. They're like, if I'm gonna die, I want to make sure I can get my kicks while I'm still alive to get them. That's what I took away.
Well, but I think also in like, what does she ask the guy at the restaurant? Frasier's dad, same. That is his name. Why? Oh, why do you chase? Or like, why do
men chase women
or something?
Why do men chase women?
Yeah. And he gives some answer, and I forget now what his answer was. Because then she says
I
that's
thought
her
he
answer.
said the one that was the afraid of dying one.
Well, he said it, and it basically backed her up. But he was a professor, right? And he's like, oh, like I do the same lecture every day, and it's so routine. It's so boring. It's like doing your multiplication tables. And I'll look up from my class, and I'll see this one girl who is looking at me like, you know, I have all these great ideas, and I'm this great person. And I'm so attracted to that. And then I take them out and like whatever, and it lasts a couple days or a couple weeks, and then they realize, you know, I'm just an old gas bag. Exactly. So that's like basically proves her point that like, you know, there's just in older, I mean, Mom, you were married for a long time. I mean, that is, you're with someone for a long time, and like, how do you keep it fresh? Like, that's not an easy thing to do, right?
That's right.
Like, you want someone to think you're great, and like maybe after 50 years, like it's hard to think sometimes that person is still like this cool, great person. I don't know. I've never been married.
It's scary. It's scary.
It is
though.
scary.
I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that.
Well, that's why I'm glad that if we do ever get married, we'll be married for not that long of a time.
What if you stay? When you're gonna be
I think
alive
your
until you're like
generation,
100.
they say you'll live to 125.
What? Good thing we're getting married late.
Yeah, see?
If at all.
If you got married in your 20s and you lived to be 100, oh my God,
It's a long
70
fucking
years?
time. Yeah, no
80
thanks.
years?
It's
Forget
a long
it.
time. But yeah, good points. So the grandfather character, who they call Pop,
old man.
They're very mean to him, and like it was unclear to me whose father he was at first, because like Olympio Dukakis was mean to him and like yells
They
at
all called
him.
Pop, so you didn't know whose Pop he was.
Right. And it's like, what? So he's the dad's dad.
Mm-hmm.
So Cosmo's dad. And he's got like 8 dogs, and he's very old. 5 dogs. I like to exaggerate. He's very old, and I'm sure he's going to kick the bucket soon. But he's a great character because he kind of is silent. Like, I wonder if there is a character in the opera who like doesn't have a lot of lines, but is just like this side like commentary kind of the character. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's an interesting one, and he has a great moment at the end where like all this stuff is happening, and he's just like crying, and he's like, I'm so confused, because he doesn't know any of this. Like, all he saw was his daughter-in-law holding the arm of a man on the side of on the corner.
He's almost like the witness to everything, right?
Yeah.
And but also
But
kind of
not
like
the
keeping
Loretta.
people.
He didn't know any
like-
of the Loretta stuff.
That's true.
It's unclear if he knew about Cosmo's affair. So I don't know.
I think he did know about Cosmo Fair, and then he saw the mom walking around with that guy.
Yeah.
So there was like that thing, and like, I mean, what do you think was like the symbolism, if any, with him with all those dogs and them just like showing him walking around with the dogs all the time, just like a funny little thing about his
I'm
character?
sure it's related to the men are dogs
right.
motif.
Men are Moonstruck
go.
men are dogs.
It's like the howling when they like howl at the moon, like the moon
Yeah.
makes you crazy,
Right.
and like that kind of
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he was a cute little character. There's a lot of characters in that film that were very, just either amusing or just very well drawn out. Even though they maybe had minor parts, I just loved them, like the aunt and uncle. Even the woman and the man in the groceries, the liquor store, when she comes across them, you know.
And it felt very New York to me, as
Yeah.
what I
Oh,
know
definitely,
about. Like, if you want to recommend to someone who has never been to New York and wants
Yeah.
like a nice little snapshot of New York
Yes.
City,
Yeah.
I think this would be a good movie for that, because it just seems like that is, I don't know, it just felt very New York, and there are these little people who have these little side little stories or these side little tangents that if you like stopped and listened, you're like, oh my God, that's interesting. Like, those people are cool. Yeah, I love that part of it, because I think half of it. So she lived in Brooklyn, so they own that like big house. Because remember, he goes whatever Cranberry Street, Brooklyn. But
Right,
I don't know if the store was in Little Italy. Remember, we're like, is
Yeah.
that Little Italy? Italy?
The bakery.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe the bakery was in Little Italy. I guess that bakery exists. That's a real bakery.
Oh, really? Oh.
You should go there. Sweetie field trip. Yeah.
Is that how they store bread? Just like in a gross basement?
I hope not.
What was he doing when he was just like throwing the bread and he was getting all
throwing
angry?
the dough. Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
Just
the
like
break bread.
the baked bread.
The
He
baked
just-
bread. He's like chucking
He was just
it
putting it
somewhere.
like on the shelf.
I'm like, is that on the ground?
in the dusty shelf with like the dust and the concrete. I was like, is this inspected by the health department?
And baking bread in a
And
basement?
with a wooden hand?
like rats everywhere. Like what is
It's
happening
confusing.
with that?
Very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that scene, I think that's my favorite scene though. When she sees him, she meets him for the first
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And he like
Oh my
spouts
God.
off this crazy ass monologue, and he's just like threatening to slit his throat with a
Get
big
my big knife.
Get me the
I
big
won't
knife.
do it, Johnny. I won't do it. Or Ronnie, I won't do it. The girls who like work
That
there.
poor girl.
Oh, she was so
Yeah.
cute. Like,
was
I'm
obsessed
in
with
love
him.
with this man.
Right, right. So it's like weird little
Sweet
things
little
like
things,
that.
like
so
little
that's the only
vignettes.
time you see
Yeah.
that character,
Right.
but you know that she has had a huge crush on
Right.
Ronnie, and like she would have done anything for him. But she
We
like,
should check in with her. Is she okay? I mean, after this whirlwind romance, I hope she's okay. But yeah, I love that scene, but I do think it's funny that he is. I think he's actually crazy, and I guess that's fine. It is a spark, I know, but it's like I don't know.
Did they make it? Yeah, tough call with that. I think he probably went insane.
Right? I just feel like he would so easily just break and just be like, "Well, that's it," and then like cut
Anyone
off
who
his
can
other
fall
hand.
in love with someone in 2 days, like let's get your head
Right?
checked. Like
that's what I'm like. What
Yeah.
are we doing?
But I'm so glad she did marry Johnny.
No.
Like,
Oh,
Yes, no, it's a great story and it's a great moment and everything. But I just
Yeah.
think realistically, what's happening?
I know.
But if we are equating it to an opera, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah,
Because all of that love happens over the course of 2 hours or whatever. So
or what
3
about
hours.
the Cinderella beauty salon, like that she walks
Ooh,
into?
good
Yeah,
point.
It's like that little
Yeah, let's talk
fairy
about
tale
the
kind of
makeover
thing.
scene. So
Makeover.
we've covered so many movies with makeover scenes, and we've talked about it in the feminist lens of how that's not always. It's not the greatest trope, right? Because we don't like the makeovers that like, okay, like you need to make over to get some guy to notice you or whatever. That is not the case with this
not-
movie,
yeah,
right? Because
no.
Johnny already Ronnie loved her.
Yeah, he already said he loved her.
That's
loved
right.
her
She
gray.
didn't have makeup on her,
Right.
or she didn't have. Oh, right.
But I think that makeover was spurred by her just wanting to be like hotter
Yeah.
because he made her feel so beautiful,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
she wanted to look at that like
Right.
that on the outside
Right.
as well, right? So she goes to Cinderella's, right? What happens?
Dyes her hair. They pluck her eyebrows. No wax. They just painstakingly pluck those suckers.
They kept him nice and big though,
Yeah.
still, which
yeah,
was nice.
yeah. Give her some makeup. Put makeup on her. She goes and buys a beautiful dress. Does her nails. She comes out of the store looking like $1 million.
Yeah, so also not only the wooden hand I really remember from this movie, but the cranberry velvet dress. I always remember that.
Yeah,
I thought it looked
stunning
so
outfit. She was
good
stunning.
on her. Great
Stunning.
color, great cut. I love a good strapless. Had like
Sparkly
a little
shoes.
flouncy hem. She looked like $1 million.
Yeah.
She just looked so polished.
Of course. I mean,
Wow,
she shares,
sure.
so it's like,
Yeah.
is that normal for everyone else? No.
But
no.
I didn't think of that. Oh, she's Cher when I'm watching that movie.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, oh, this is this Italian, down and out Italian woman.
She
She's
was-
about to throw her life away on this loser, boring guy,
Right.
and then she meets this passionate guy.
Very,
she
very
never
believable.
seems like Cher, except for one part where they do like what were you? Remember that part where there was like weird music?
Oh, the weird glam. They should just
They
taken
did, like,
that
a
out.
weird glam
So
shot.
she comes home with all her clothes, and
Oh,
after
I
the
never
makeover,
liked that scene either.
and pours herself like
Who
a
directed
giant
this movie?
glass of wine, like a giant pour. You're like, aren't you going out? I mean, I like to get
Light-
sometimes sometimes
yeah.
with a glass of wine. but
Lights a
let's-
fire in the fireplace.
Puts on some tunes and is like sitting with all the boxes of clothes she has bought, like and like looking at her shoes like lovingly, applies like 1/4 of a lipstick and like looks at herself in the mirror. It was very strange.
Strikes a pose in her long silky
Yeah.
slip.
It was
Like,
interesting.
okay.
Maybe she just has it in her
And then that
contract.
music was so corny.
Yeah.
What was that
It's like
music?
Cher must have one glam shot per movie.
No,
like,
I thought that was very. I always
was
thought that was out of
cheesy.
place. That scene.
Yeah.
It didn't fit with anything.
No.
else. I don't know.
agreed. But that was the only time I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that
you're
right,
right.
it's
That's
Cher.
good point.
Other than that, really, you don't even,
But
even
you,
remember.
Mom,
Cher.
you love the meeting at the fountain scene, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you said
You
that was your favorite.
Yeah, that was my
Set
favorite.
that up.
So Nicholas, Ronnie.
Why are they named like the same thing? It's really
funny.
making this podcast difficult.
Again, it's like an opera trope where you have like a mistaken identity or
So
like
true.
two brothers kind of thing.
Oh, right. Yeah. A lot of plays like Shakespeare.
Very like Shakespearean,
Right,
yeah.
So he had Ronnie has Loretta meet him at the Met, and before actually they split the night they stayed together. She says, "Where's the Met?" Like she didn't even know where it was. So so we assumed that he told her where it was, and that he'd meet her in front of this gigantic, beautiful fountain in front of the stunning Met, this glass faced fronted building, and they're playing all this opera music, and you see her get out of the car. You see her sparkly shoe first, and you see him. Then they cut to him by the fountain. He's like waiting there, and he looks like, oh, she's not going to show up, and he's looking kind of worried.
Good acting by Nicolas Cage.
Very good acting by him. And he's not saying anything. He's just kind of looking, and then she's kind of looking, and they're almost like she doesn't see him either. And then she just starts walking toward him, and then the next shot, you see him look up, and he sees her, and she looks absolutely stunning in her cranberry velvet dress and her beautiful hair and her ruby lips, and the music just takes this crescendo like this.
I got a little choked up. I'm gonna be honest.
I remember that scene. Yeah, that scene always got me. It was just it's just so romantic, just so romantic, and
because they like very much even have spent almost no time together,
Yeah.
right? Have just that very much like all
and he's
kind
seen
of
this
love for each
playing
other.
Loretta before, and
Right.
here comes she's a movie star.
Yeah, right. And so he's like just basically it's like takes his breath
and he
away.
cleaned up well too.
Yeah,
He
but
did.
and I love that her reaction is like, she's like, "You look good too."
Beautiful. I think
No,
she said,
beautiful. Yeah,
You
he's you look beautiful.
Yeah.
You look beautiful too.
Oh my god,
It's funny. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it was. I just love those scenes when like that reveal scenes, and
Yeah.
like we said, it's not like a she's all that kind of a thing where it's like, oh, Freddie Prinze Jr. won't love you unless you get rid of your glasses and wear this like slutty dress. Different kind of makeover, and one I can totally get behind.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just that like, look how pretty I am. Kind of like, I don't know. I used to
feel
love that.
good.
When I had
I
a
feel good
boyfriend,
and I'm buying
I
some
liked
lipstick.
looking pretty.
Yeah,
And then I'd
I
be
mean-
like, here's the reveal.
She was always that pretty, but she just didn't care because she didn't have anyone to be pretty for her. No one like made her want to kind of
Right.
shed that
Right.
sort of. She thought she was kind of done. Put a fork in her. Done.
Done.
But why did she
Bread
think
was
she
baked.
even had to get married again anyway to Johnny? Why did she?
Because she felt like that was what she had to do.
She had to do?
Yeah.
Like,
That's what you did. One of the old people say something about that, like, oh, I forget what the line
It's
is,
about
but they're
time?
basically equating like the only thing women do is get married.
Yeah.
Like that's what they need. That's all
Right.
they have left to do in life is to get married.
I feel like she felt her window was closing, right? She's like 37. I have someone to get married to. If she didn't, she would have been living in her house with her parents. By the time she probably got into her 40s, I don't think she would have thought like, okay, like I'm not going to be able to get out of this. Like I'm stuck here. Like so I think she saw that as a way out, as horrible as that guy was. And I think she thought that guy was fine.
well, she was settling. She was settling.
Exactly. She was settling. And I think that exchange she has with her mom is great, right? So her mom is sleeping and she wakes her up to tell her that I'm engaged. And the great reaction from the family is, I'm getting married. Again?
You got married You got married before. It didn't work out. He
Right.
died.
Right. So they have like a very interesting reaction to that. But her mom goes, do you love him? And she goes, no. And she goes, good. Because if you do, they drive you crazy because they know they can. Like if you love somebody. And I think that's such an interesting take on like love and when you love somebody. And that's so true. And interesting of how like Olympia Cox's character thinks of it being like, this is if the man knows they have that like kind of power over you, like they will sort of drive you crazy, which I do agree is like a thing. And I mean, I guess you could reverse that and say women are like that too, but it's just like a little bit different for ladies, I think, and just that like the way we get kind of Gaga Lady Gaga over people. So, but I think she spouts many other like bits of wisdom, I feel like, through this, and I think they're like so great. Need them on like a T-shirt or a bookmark, or
I'll get you a calendar, custom calendar.
Roses,
all of the things she
roses,
says. Just know all the characters she's played in movies, just like all her lines.
I know.
I'd like to talk about confessional booths.
Oh.
So now that Carol is here, is the perfect opportunity for Emily and I to ask you, what was your motivation with forcing us to go to CCD? Were you religious? We got the sense you weren't. I mean, we went to church on occasion, but I'm just confused. Like, okay, my main question is, why did I have to go to CCD until I had to get confirmed, and Emily got to stop because she had ballet? That's what I want to know.
I'm sorry.
Favorite
I
child.
No.
Yeah. But I'm going to hell.
Liz made her sacraments too.
I know. Yeah, I remember, like, I mean, I just think ballet was so important to me that I was like, it just didn't fit in with my stardom.
I hated CCD so much. So confession.
sorry.
Okay, so there's one point when I think it's before you make your first communion, you have to do like a confession thing. What is that called?
Penance.
Penance. It's like
Penance?
But what's the
Yes.
day? Like the day that you can go to church and do that. You know what I mean?
It's penance.
They like have it on the board. Okay.
Yeah.
So we think it's that. So they like brief you on what you're supposed to do. You have to like kneel, and then like the priest comes and you say things. And like I was super stressed out about this because it's like
I'm so sorry.
no, I mean it's fine. It's just like a weird situation because what do you have to atone for when you are
Right.
in second grade?
It's bullshit.
It's
I'm
such
sorry.
bullshit.
It's
So
bullshit.
I was
can't
like,
believe they put kids through that. It's
I
unbelievable.
know, but I was like stressed out about that, and then I was like, Emily, what do I say? Like I know, and you were like, I just say you lied, and I'm like, okay. I was like, forgive me, Father, and it's just like so awkward because that priest is like right there, and you're like, he's not supposed to see me, but I know who he knows who I am. And like, I don't know.
It seems so outdated and strange now that we make our kids go through with that. Like I remember, like just like Sweetie was saying, so we did it at CCD. So I don't know, like when that happens in the real world, like you just waltz into the church. I think
like
there's
a
a scheduled
Saturday or
time
something?
There's a
Yeah.
scheduled time for it. It's on the board.
Grammy called Doris? I don't
Yeah,
know.
seriously. So there's like a scheduled time for it, so you know, like, and the thing, if everyone has to remember about Catholicism, right, is that, and why people have like such a problem with it, is that like Italians and let's say Irish people too are in like Catholic faith. You can do all these bad things, but you can go to confession and it's all wiped away. So that's kind of like a shoddy religion, right? Because like you shouldn't be doing bad things anyway. But
Right.
it sets it up so the people, and that's why I think that like if you talk about like mobsters and like, you know, Irish mob and stuff like that was a thing for them, right? Because they could do all these bad things and be like, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
That.
Yes, they
They
did.
have,
Confessed
and then
to
there was
killing
the
people.
Yeah.
the
Then your
sacredness
soul
of
is
the,
clean.
of the confessional. Like the priest was
Exactly.
not
They
was
can't-
bound.
Oh
They're
yeah,
not
I
supposed
remember
to
I
say-
asked that question. So when I did my first communion was right when the O.J. Simpson trial was happening. So I asked my CCD teacher. I was like, so like even if O.J. Simpson like went in the confession booth and was like, I killed Nicole, he wouldn't be able to tell anyone. And she was like, right,
And that wouldn't
I was
count in a
like,
courtroom or anything like that.
I was like,
I
that
mean,
is
I would make
nuts.
a horrible priest, let me tell you, because I would be
right.
telling people right and left.
We can't keep secrets. I can't keep secrets.
But yeah, so I remember that CCD though specifically. So like we would go and it would be built into the CCD class. So like because they wanted us all to get used to it.
But it was during the day.
No,
I
it was
remember it
during
during
the
our
day.
CCD. No, because I remember it was like
No, it was during our CCD
the
class.
priest
So
there?
that was part of the day. Like so you'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, let's all go. So you're all waiting in the pews. You're like, okay, Emily, like you're next. So like you waltz in there and like just like Sweetie said. So they tell you the whole procedure. I mean, it's kind of fascinating to learn as a little kid. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been so many days since my last confession, right?
what do you say when it's your first one? I forget. They like
yeah.
make you say
I've
something.
never
I've
confessed
never
before.
Okay,
confessed
this is
before.
my first
Right.
confession.
So, and I don't remember if they gave you any primers on like what to say.
I don't
And, like
think
what
so.
if kids got really creative. I'm pretty sure I did lied, maybe swore, and I think I pinched my
I
sister.
was mean to
or
my
something.
sister. Yeah. You told me you did.
I did that maybe a couple times. I'm sorry. I was using it as fodder for the confession booth. That's why I was mean to you. I was like, I need something to confess. But yeah, it's so fascinating because like,
And
how
then-
old are you
yeah.
in second grade?
And then he's like,
7?
do like 6 Hail Marys and
Right.
7 Our Fathers. Or in this case, they have her do 2 rosaries, which is a long time and a lot of prayers.
Yeah.
So so the rosary, you have like different colored beads or like size beads or whatever, right? So like the most beads on that are the Our Fathers, and then the other ones are like Hail Marys.
I think the little ones are Hail Marys,
Yeah.
and then
And and I remember then we'd have to like go and do that, and they'd be like, "Do I really have to do this shit?" And I'd like sit like to
That's
pretend to
hilarious
pray,
that, like
to pray.
that's the punishment.
Yeah.
Like lots of like prayers you just keep saying over and over again. Like what do you remember? Did you learn that when you did your like early catechism stuff?
Yeah, same thing. I guess the reason I made you go, like I really wasn't that enamored of the church myself, but I felt like it was my duty as a parent to give you some kind of foundation, and then you could choose what you wanted to believe or not.
Yeah, that's
because that's how I was brought up, and then I decided
that's like everyone from your like people who I know have grew up Catholic. It's that exact same thing. So they had parents who grew up Catholic, a little bit more strict than they got raised, and basically everyone petered out just like we did. So we were like good Catholics. We went most Sundays, and then we just started going on holidays.
I don't remember going most Sundays
and then
ever.
we went quite a bit.
Every Sunday?
Not every, but most.
I don't. I've always remember being just Easter and Christmas family.
Well,
we were not that kind of Catholic. I'm sorry.
Yes, we were.
No.
In the middle half of our lives.
Easter
and Christmas.
When
we didn't go at all. Like towards the end.
For the end. Yeah, we were always
What do
like,
you mean
let's go
toward
to
the end
midnight
when we
mass.
were-
when I was still living at home, and we just did not go.
How old were you in your 20s?
When I was still living at home, so high school.
Oh, high school. We didn't go to church?
No.
Oh, God.
We'd try to go. We'd be like a grand. Well, your thing was always like, let's go to midnight mass. Never
Nobody
made it.
wanted to
Every
go with
year,
me.
Mom,
No one
you
could
would
stay
fall
up.
asleep. You fell asleep first. You were gone. I was out.
tried
It's too
so
hard.
many
It's too
times.
hard.
Like where I live now, they have a midnight mass at the Protestant church on Christmas Eve, and I always say, "Oh, let's go." Actually,
Yeah.
it's not midnight; it's at 6 o'clock, and I never get to that either.
Oh my god, I'd still like to go. I mean, there's part of me that does still think like there's
Candlelight
a
vigil.
beauty about the Catholic Church because it is so ornate, and the traditions in there and like all the singing and stuff is really beautiful, and you can get like really carried away by that. So I would like to go sometime just to like experience the time that I've gone in the last, whether it's like weddings or funerals or whatever. I've like, those are kind of sad or more like event driven ones. I'm reminded how like beautiful Catholic churches are and like that whole experience. But it's an interesting thing if you talk to people who aren't used to that kind of a church, because it is so roped into like, like all like putting the things down and kneeling on them. Like that just like strikes me as like a crazy
everybody
thing.
prays together.
Yeah, everyone
P.S. There's all these dead guys hanging
Right.
all over the ceiling.
The peace
and
be
like,
with you, the communion, the baskets getting passed around to do the donations. I mean, it's just it's the same ceremony every time, other than the read exchange.
Right.
Yeah. And like,
Well,
the
that's what
gospel.
it is. It's about tradition and ritual. It's
Right.
about
Which
ritual.
we don't have a lot in our lives right now. And
No.
I think that's why I like that. I find that kind of fascinating that you can go there and like, I haven't gone to church in 15 years, but I could go and just pick it up, just how I remembered it because it's the exact same every time.
do you have anyone from this movie you would like to induct into the Sweetie Club, Sweetie?
Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to go with that sweet uncle. The uncle who does the moon story.
Oh, yeah. So he tells this moon story about how it was when he was little.
No, so he Cosmo was, because he's Rose's brother.
Right.
So Cosmo would come to their house to like court Rose, and he was like so enamored with her.
Okay, I thought there was like an ulterior, like Cosmo was like, "Don't tell that story," because that was actually about him like in love with someone else or something.
No, but I think he just feels like shit because he just cheated on her.
Right, yeah.
He's cheating on her, and his uncle is telling this amazing
Reminding
true
him how
love,
in love
beautiful
he was
story,
with his sister.
and he just feels
Yeah.
like a shithead. So.
Right.
Yeah, that uncle was sweet. I might pick the xylophone man at the opera. I'm just kidding. I just love that part. So is that
That's
still a
bizarre.
thing? We need to talk to somebody
No,
who's
it's
been to the
electronic
opera.
now. They just make
I
it
was
thing.
wondering,
But
like they play a noise.
I think they played the same sound.
Yeah, like ding ding.
But they
ding.
don't have a guy with
And
a
isn't that the same?
xylophone.
And isn't
Well,
that
it's
the
just
same?
1987.
Isn't that the NBC theme song? And they just like stole it. But like, why is he wearing a cape? And like, how do you get that job? Is he in the orchestra?
That
Like,
part was
what?
the
I have so
most
many questions.
and it just like came out of nowhere. You're like, whoa, who's that guy?
And it's like in Greece when they do that too. Those are the same notes she plays to like start the school day or like the like announcement time. So I just thought that was hilarious. But I love that. I love the like culture of going to a show and like the lights do the like flashy things and everybody's like and like gets to their seat. Unless you're going to a concert in Medford. Like Sweetie and I did a couple weeks ago, and nobody fucking pays attention to that and comes in late and doesn't care.
Don't go to a show in Medford because no one goes to shows in Medford and they don't know how to behave
What
at the
show
theater.
was it?
This
So we
was-
went. So you know the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend? It's on the CW.
Yeah.
Excellent. We're recommending it right now. It's such a good show, and especially if you like musicals, it's a musical comedy show.
Oh.
So they ended up their last season is next season, but they did like a live tour, which is kind of interesting for like a TV show to do that. But because it's like a musical show, it was basically like a little review of all their songs. So they have all these songs that they sing. So it was really cool. And they originally were going to do it in this pretty well-known theater in Boston. And then I don't know what happened. They like sold too many tickets, or maybe something else was scheduled for that time. So they moved it to this bizarre little theater in Medford, which is like down the street from where Sweetie lives, and which looks like a high school auditorium.
Sure it was a high
so
school
they're like,
auditorium.
we get our tickets at will call, and they come and they're like, okay, like, you know, we hear some girl being like, oh, the show started exactly at 7:30, and she's like, oh, probably more like 7:40, 7:45. So we're like, fine, but we'll get there at least before 7:30, get our seats, get our refreshments, whatever. We're sitting down, and people rolled in. I am not kidding you. Like an hour later, people were coming in at 8:15, 8:30. Can you imagine
weird.
that for
Yeah, it was
a
weird.
theater
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah.
This is not a rock concert where you're like, oh, there's an opening. I think maybe that's what
opening
people
act
thought it
will come in
was.
later.
Yeah.
They must have thought that. I don't know.
It was
like,
weird, and people kept getting up.
Yeah. Oh my god. Like, do we need to get drinks every second? Like,
It's
can
not
you calm down?
right. Is this a 3-hour show? It was an hour and a couple minutes.
So fucking weird.
Cool your jets.
So fucking weird.
Yeah,
But it was
weird.
really fun. But it was a really fun night. But good times.
Tangent.
Yeah.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Yeah.
Love it. Anything else anyone wants to talk about?
I don't know, Mom. What do you think about this podcasting experience
Yeah.
now that you're on
Do you
this side of the
feel-
mic?
Well, it's a lot more to it than I imagine. It's almost
What,
it's sort of
I'm sorry. What did
intimidating.
you imagine? What do you mean? There's more to it.
Well, you're just so organized and you're so
We're not
articulate. and-
organized. We're
and
not.
it's, you have microphones.
we don't plan
and-
anything.
Well, it's a little more spontaneous than I thought. But you took serious notes all during the
Well,
movie. I didn't take one note.
I don't know
all.
how serious they are. My notes say, "Now what are we doing here?" Question mark. Ronnie's wooden hand. Nicolas Cage. Passion/fire. Makeover. So it's not like
they're just things to remind
Yeah,
us about
right.
stuff
Yeah,
to talk
no, I think
about.
that's good.
I put quotes. I put a lot of quotes. I put just like dumb stuff. Jokes maybe I've thought up while we were watching it. I'm gonna like say
yeah,
them
we're,
later.
like we're working on our jokes.
Yeah,
We're like
right. So there is like
testing
some
it out.
planning with it, but I
Yeah.
think, as you viewers know, we just love like the spontaneity of this podcast, and I think we just work better that way
It's
versus
slow,
like
man. Never did it a day in our life.
no.
Except
Yeah,
for one
I
time I,
know.
said
It's-
something
it's,
mean about Liz, and I cut it out because I felt bad. The only time.
Not scripted. The show.
No.
No, it's great, and thank you for having me as your guest live.
I know.
I know.
Very exciting.
I'm so glad we were able to do this because we had talked about
Yeah,
doing this
for so
and we actually were going to try to do it at that podcast studio that we did and trying to like organize that, but this worked out much better. So
And it's free.
and it's free.
Okay.
But yeah, so we'll have to have you back on, and I'm sure
Sure.
we'll call you again. But yeah,
Okay.
this is one we were always like, well, if we do this one, we have to call Mom. We have to call Carol.
Aw, thank you.
And our fans love you, and they get so excited. And I got people, my friend Frankie texts me like every time there's a call Carol to like gab
Love you,
about what
Frankie.
Carol
Thank
said.
you.
And it's the best.
Yeah, everyone knows you by name now.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Oh my god.
It's the greatest. We love it.
Fun.
It's
Love
fun.
that, Carol.
Yeah. Woo. But yeah, cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. You can catch us on Twitter at the Sweetie Club or on Instagram at Large Marge Sent Us. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.